You're listening to the Beyond Sunday podcast, where faith journeys extend beyond the Sunday sermon. Join Pastor Jeff Carlson and guests as they dive deeper into spiritual topics, offering insights and reflections that resonate with believers from all walks of life. Join us for enriching conversations in faith, life, and community. This is Beyond Sunday.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Beyond Sunday podcast. I'm Pastor Jeff, this is Pastor Zach, producer Aaron. Who's Aaron? Producer Andrew is here, and we're just really glad that you joined us today. And we want to talk about a specific...
Before we start, I want to point out, why haven't you changed your shirt in 3 weeks?
I like this shirt. Yeah,
we're recording these all in one lump, so
yeah, a few at a time.
Now do your intro.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Pastor Zach. I wanted to, we have four cultural or pillars or whatever that we're trying to build Connection Point Church on. Prayer is our priority. People are our purpose. His presence is our pursuit. And the last one, his mission is our passion. The mission of God in the world. To seek and to save the lost. I mean, that's Jesus came to seek and to save the lost.
Right.
I would say, going all the way back to Genesis, let me ask this, do you think the mission of God goes all the way back to creation? Was
prior to.
Okay.
In my theology, because the Lamb of God, slain from the foundation of the world, how could God, unbound by time, not know what he was doing?
Yeah.
He knew. So I do think the mission of God was there from the beginning.
So we would say from the foundation of the world, his intention, knowing man would fall, that there would be a reconciliation. There would be a ministry of reconciliation given through Jesus, and then certainly passed to the church. So obviously Jesus did that super awesome. He ran everybody off. He had thousands and thousands follow him, really had a mega church happening, and then ran them all off and ended up with about 120. Maybe if you believe Corinthians 500.
So he went from a consumer church down to a
very small
little discipleship.
That little group, when empowered by the Holy Spirit, turned the world upside down, and really went out to accomplish the mission of God and reach. When Jesus said, "Go into all the world," they're like, "Okay," well, they took it seriously.
I saw a horrible meme on Facebook, and that's my fault for being on Facebook. I admit that. And it had a picture of crusaders chopping people up and saying, "This is how Christianity spread." It's a lie. The way Christianity spread was by people following Jesus Christ, behaving like Jesus Christ. Schools were planted, hospitals were set up, and sharing the love of God like Jesus. That's really how the world has become evangelized over the last 2,000 years.
In fact, it
hasn't been by force.
Certainly not by force. In fact, by martyrdom more than force, I would say.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk about bloodshed,
that's what I think.
Much more out of martyrdom.
Yeah,
giving their life for a community or people. When Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 13, now abides faith, hope, and love. I think we have, when we think about the mission of God, we think about the things of God. We have elevated faith to the top of that list. But Paul said the greatest of these is love.
Yeah,
and when Christianity goes into a community in legitimacy, it lifts everything. It lifts economics, it lifts education, it lifts people's lifestyles, and it changes everything.
And it's not a word of love. Like I love you, bro.
I say that all the time.
Yeah, you do.
But I do, and I mean,
but you would
demonstratable. Love.
Demonstratable. A friend of mine challenged me. He's not from the same background I am, and he said, "Zach, will you do me a favor? I'm gonna bring in a sleeping bag for this homeless guy. I won't get to see him. Will you make sure that he gets this sleeping bag?" And I thought, that's the love of God.
Yeah.
That's how evangelism, that's how gospelization should take place. The church should be doing all those types of things. I got to do something really cool too. I got invited to the work release jail part. And you've been there. I found out you'd been there.
Yeah, it's a great.
They said, "Will you come and do the devotion?" I said, "Sure." And they fed every prisoner there an Easter dinner.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't real spiritual, but man, it attracted everybody. Do we need to pause and let you finish
Just had to
joking?
get that out of there. Yeah. Yeah, they do that for Easter and they do it for Christmas. And when you
I was amazed.
When you go into a place like that, there's nothing you're getting out of that. Like for you, you're not taking a love offering for yourself or getting an honorarium. Like it's just honor and love. And like, we're just trying to show people that God loves them.
It's a hug. Yeah. It's physically those people. I felt the love of God physically, tangibly right there. That's the love of God. Yeah. And we need to be doing things like that on our own. Yeah. Individual Christians. Every day.
One more.
You're really choked up.
I'm good now. One of the things we're getting ready to launch and work on is a dinner church in Romney Meadows, which is down on the south side. What I've understood, very difficult place. A lot of violence happens there, and so Roger and Chrissy Scheibe, one of our deacons, and his wife are going to lead that team to go into Romney Meadows and do, it's basically sharing the gospel in a practical way around the table. We're going to feed them dinner, and then we're going to talk about Jesus and tell them a Jesus story, and there'll be opportunity for people to be saved, whatever. So they've been meeting with the manager, and then there's like a corporate manager, whatever, over the whole thing, and they're meeting with them, and they say, this is what they said to Roger and Chrissy. They said, so many ministries have come in here, and they come in here and they do it for a few weeks or whatever they do, and then they leave. Yeah. And no one has ever stayed. And I said, when Roger shared that with me, I thought, we're going to have to prove it. And that's the mission of God, isn't it? That staying.
Remember what Eugene Peterson quoted? Friedrich Nietzsche. The God is Dead guy. Did you know that the title of Peterson's book, A Long Obedience in the Same Direction, is a quote from a
pagan?
I don't know if he was pagan or not. He said some really challenging things, but one was that's how we should live. Yeah. Obedience, faithfulness.
Well, it's this idea, like the mission of, like, it's easy to invest in someone's life when there's enormous need in a moment for their life. Someone goes through a death or somebody goes through a financial crisis. We jump in and invest and help. Yeah. And then when things settle out, we're back to our life. And I don't mean the church. I mean in their individual life. Right. If you have a loved one or a friend or whatever goes through a rough time, man, you're right there and you help them, and you're showing them the love of God. But then we back off, and we all just kind of go back to normal. And I think the mission of God would say, no, we seize those moments and we dig in. And why don't we do that? Because it costs us a lot, especially time. It does money.
It does cost money to do some of that stuff too.
It does, but I think it's the time. And I've said it a few times in our church. We are at a place in the American church where it's so much easier to write a check to send somebody to another foreign field than it is even to spend time walking around our neighborhood and talking about the Lord with our neighbors, or even just like getting to know our neighbors so someday we'll have permission. So when Roger's sharing this to me about Romney Meadows, I thought, and I said to our deacon board, we're going to have to make a 1 year plus commitment that I don't care if 2 people come, we're going to be there, and we're going to show up every week, and we're going to do the same thing every week until God moves. And people go, oh, I guess these people aren't leaving. I guess they're not going to be like, well, that didn't work, and go back to their church, because that's what the group was indicating to.
So 1 year from this podcast.
No, because 1 year from when we start, which I'm not sure when that'll be yet.
Well, a year from now, we need to come back and say, well, where are we? Yeah. In this steadfast sharing of Jesus, the mission of God? Yeah. I think there are 2 focuses when we are talking about evangelism or the mission of God. Evangelism is part of that. But our first focus has to be really on Jesus. Yeah. Because he's the reason that we do these things.
Yeah, for sure.
I've known churches that their focus is on the social aspect of it, and that has to follow. If our spiritual focus is upon who is Jesus and what does he want us to do. You remember Matthew 28:19, the greatest verse on evangelism, right? It says, go into all the world, and the world there is the word ethnos, go to all the nations and disciple them.
Yeah.
Is what he says.
Yeah.
So the greatest verse on evangelism actually tells us to disciple, make disciples of people.
And part of our problem is the semantics of that, because the way we define discipleship is post-salvation.
Yeah.
The way Jesus defined discipleship was pre-salvation, of little by little.
Is evangelism like pre-discipleship?
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
yeah. Because there's a scale called the Engel scale. You can look up ENGEL, I think, and it goes from basically it puts somebody's salvation like on a timeline or a scale, -10 to +10. You can find a -5 to +5, but it's the same.
What chapter is that in the Bible here?
But the idea is that, discipleship doesn't start at 0 when someone gets saved. They get saved at 0. Discipling someone towards the cross starts at a -10 when they are so far from God. Maybe they're atheists, maybe they're pagan, maybe they're, whatever. They're so far from God, and their relationship with you is the only light in their darkness.
Because you fed them a turkey sandwich or a ham sandwich or something.
Exactly.
Suddenly they're interested in how you're living your life.
I expect people at Romney Meadows, after several weeks of being there and giving them food and telling them we love them, because I'm going to tell them we love them and whatever, they'll be like, why do you keep coming back? Why are you here? And I think that when an unbeliever asks a believer, why are you doing this? That's a movement, on that Engel scale towards salvation. That's that guy just moved a notch, because he's now wondering, what is it in you that's causing you to bring so much compassion?
Because you showed interest in me. So I think is our second focus. Yeah. The people, the ethnos, whoever that person is. We focus on Jesus first, but we also have to focus on them. And nowhere do we focus on ourselves. Yeah. What do I get out of this? As a Christian, I'm going to invest in this, but I want to know what I get. We don't do that. Yeah. We just say, this is Jesus.
We do that, but
I know we're not supposed to.
We need to let that go.
This is what Jesus wants. Take this gospel, the evangelion, to the ethnos, to the people. Yeah. How do we open the heart, the mind of a person, and get them to be curious about Jesus Christ? Yeah. And that's the mission of God, to me.
When we look at Jesus' ministry and the apostles' ministry, I think we see two things that God did, that God used, I guess, through their lives to open those doors. One is compassion. So it's giving food away, like our food pantry, serving 70 plus families a week. That's opening doors, in people's hearts. So we minister that way. Or when they're sick, what did Jesus say? Visit the sick, go check out people that are in prison.
I get asked all the time at the hospital, what church are you with?
Right.
And I don't tell anybody, but I do tell them.
If you wear this shirt, they won't have to ask.
I know, but I don't wear that shirt to my job.
Well, maybe you should.
But when you minister, when you pray for somebody that's sick, they want to know more about how you worship.
Helping your neighbor lady who's really old and needs help with something, sending your kids to help pick up sticks and the elder, whatever. Yeah. But those compassion things open people's lives to the gospel. The second one is healing and miracles, that, Jesus would often go to a town, he would heal all the sick, and then he would preach the gospel. He would heal everybody, and then he would preach the kingdom. Same thing happened on the day of Pentecost. The miracle happened, and then Peter preached to the crowd, right? So God uses both. One is supernatural, but one is natural, right? One is in the name of God or in the power of God. So it's supernatural in the sense of it's empowered by the Holy Spirit.
Making somebody a sandwich is very natural.
But it's a natural thing. I'm going to put peanut butter and jelly on a bread, and I'm going to take it to the guy down the street,
give him bologna.
Well, I don't know. I like peanut butter and jelly pretty good. But one is something like I think we should listen to the Lord, and if he leads us to someone specific or whatever, then we should do that. But I don't know that you got to pray about stuff like that,
Not too much.
Should I help my neighbor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody's hungry. Should I help? Should I share my sandwich with them today at lunch? No.
Right.
You don't have to pray.
Yeah, you don't have to pray about that. Now, should I join we haven't even offered this yet, but should I join the Romney Meadows dinner church planting team? You probably ought to have the Lord lead you to that, and that'd be something. But could you come here and cook food for that dinner? Absolutely.
Could you put the mayonnaise on the bologna?
Exactly. Yeah. So that the team can take, so I don't think we have to pray about some of those things. The other is a supernatural act of God that we are obedient in as the Lord, directs us, I guess, and opens that door. But both of those things, both of those pathways open people's hearts and lives to the gospel. I've seen it internationally. I've seen it here. So I've always struggled with missions teams. I love missions teams, but I've always struggled with them because the things people will do for the kingdom in foreign countries that they will not do in America is astounding. They'll stand on the corner and preach a sermon, on the street in foreign countries, but they won't even talk to their coworker or their neighbor about Christ here in America. And I've always been astounded by that, how there's this there's this great gulf fixed between the two. I don't understand it.
At some point, I just decided I'm a missionary here. I always feel like an outcast a lot of times, and I just thought, well, I'll just be a missionary here, and keep that kind of mindset, so that maybe I'll do bolder things than I would do otherwise.
I agree, and I think that's the rub for me is people can, like we have equated being a missionary or living missional, living on mission from God to the foreign field. And that's not at all even what that means when the Lord sent us, right? He sent us.
I think we need to tie that together for some people that don't know. Mission and apostolic are actually synonyms.
Yeah.
Apostolos means sent one, someone that's sent by God. When we talk about the apostles in the New Testament, they were people that God sent and they went.
Yeah,
they did what God told them to do. The same thing is true today. Many missionaries that I know are sent supernaturally by God. I know some that just go on the mission field. Hey, this would be cool to go on this trip to.
They don't usually last.
Yeah. Well, on a short term, it's great. You go on a short term, you get to come home. But there are some people that are just, they are apostles in a true sense of the word. They are sent. And we use the word missionary. I think they're synonyms. And that's the mission of God has to be apostolic.
I don't disagree. I just think we can't equate. If we're going to do the mission of God, we can't equate it to just foreign service and thinking I've got to go to a different country then if I'm going to be a missionary. No, every one of us are missionaries, missions, on mission from God everywhere we go.
I think I'm a missionary in this county, Tippecanoe County. I think I am.
Right. So how can we get, if we say his mission is our passion, then that means that our people connection, if you're a CPCer,
you're a missionary to this.
We got to start,
or whatever county you live in. Benton
County.
Yeah.
We've got a few people from Carroll County and some other places, but for real, like you are sent
by God.
We gather on Sunday to equip and to strengthen and to touch the Lord, and then we are deployed. And I'm super appreciative of Pastor Zach Maddox for bringing some of those thoughts and those ideas to this church and putting it in, part of the DNA. And I think that. It's one of the reasons that I even wanted to come here was some of those DNA pieces. So I want us to, and us included, to begin really not just letting it be a pillar of a cultural thought that we do, here, but that we take that with us wherever we go. We're doing that when we go to Romney Meadows. We're going to be doing that when we do our church plant in Lafayette. We're going to be doing that certainly as we plant our Spanish-speaking church. We're going to have people come in here who don't speak English and are illegal immigrants and all these things that are political hot buttons. And we're going to have to choose the mission of God over politics, right? We're going to have to choose the mission of God over our preferences and our ideas of what should or shouldn't happen with particularly right now, immigration and the border and all those things that are hot topics. But we're going to have to pick the mission of God over those things. We can't be okay with foreigners in Tippecanoe County because they're scholars, and not okay with a migrant worker just because they've come illegally. The mission of God has to be above that. That's hard. That's hard to say, right?
Maybe they are illegally here, so they get to hear more about Jesus. Yeah,
and then the Lord will convict them and make them go home, and they will take the gospel back to Venezuela or Mexico or
as soon as they're out of prison when they. No, it happens. I heard a wonderful testimony about somebody that went to prison and came out, and they are just full of Jesus, sharing Jesus, preaching Jesus. I said, I'd love to hear stories.
It's the same. It's sort of this. I've heard it from a lot of our people. It's the same. Really, it's the same mission that we have for Purdue. Why do we want our Indian and Asian students and African students to come and find Christ and be discipled and grow, because they're going to go home. Most of them are going to go home. Yeah. And when they go home as missionaries to their country. Yeah. And if you're talking about China and Indonesia and places in the East, and even India, that's, so largely Hindu, they're going home as missionaries to places that some missionaries can't even get to. That's powerful.
They're not going anywhere that God is not already ahead of them. That's how being sent and missional is. Now, this is very unspiritual. Do you know why I come to church here on Sunday morning? I come here to be with people.
Yeah.
It's very unspiritual because I don't come here to be with God.
I think being with people is spiritual, though.
It is. If I'm not ready for God to go with me Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and I, like I said, stay ahead of me, so I'm going in the right direction. There's really no point in me coming here on Sunday morning and thinking God's locked up, and we let him out for 2 hours or 2 hours and 10 minutes whenever you're preaching, and we let him out during that time. I left before the final prayer Sunday, the healing Sunday that we had, but that doesn't. This is not a confinement area for God. We come together as people here,
so that we can go do the mission.
Where we are being sent,
right? So God is sending us, international people that are here legally.
But we're all being sent.
We're all, I realize that, but they're here for that.
Yeah.
So when illegals come, it's no different. The mission's the same. The mission's the same, because they'll go back too at some point, because God will lead them there. Why are they here? So they can find Christ, be discipled, and grow. And that's why we're here, right? And that's what you're saying. That's why I'm here. I'm here so that I can then be deployed to the world.
We apply the mission of God to every one of us,
including what you said a couple episodes about how we spend our time in the morning worshiping God, praying, seeking the Lord, reading the Bible, not so that we can do that work and then go on with our day, but so that devotional time impacts all of our day. We don't just abide for those 30 minutes or an hour. We abide all day, and the 30 minutes allows that for us. So it's the same thing. We are sent from God. We abide together for those 2 hours on Sunday so we can be encouraged and equipped and healed and strengthened and whatever.
And have a cup of coffee.
And we have good coffee now. But have a cup of coffee and then go. Yeah. We go. It's like on our front doors, it says, for Greater Lafayette.
I wish people could experience what I do. I literally do that now that I work on Sundays at 1:00, praying for people. I literally leave the service. I usually I'm working because I got a tie on, and I go and I do this ministry. Work. And I wish everybody could have that feeling of what it is. Being sent straight.
They could if we really believed and acted that the mission of God is our passion. Then everybody would feel that way. We could not wait to get to work on Monday. If we saw ourselves going to work on Monday as a missionary, we're going to share the gospel with somebody today. We're going to invest in people's lives. We're going to be compassionate and loving to a lost world, and somebody's going to get saved, or somebody's going to get healed, or somebody's going to get transformed. Like, if that was a regular thing in our lives, because we looked at it that way, everything changes. Everything changes. And I think that's where the Lord is leading us as a people. So thank you so much for joining us. Pray that we'll be on the mission of God together. We love you, and we will see you next time. Have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to the Beyond Sunday podcast. We invite you to join the conversation and share your thoughts at connectionpointchurch.org/Beyond Sunday. Spread the word and share this podcast with others. Stay inspired and connected as we explore faith beyond Sunday.